If you are a warrior main, especially of Berserker affinity, and if you manage to quiet down the ADHD for a little bit, you will probably hear the faint whisper in the back of your head of Rifle calling to you like you were a quiet American kid with horrible acne bullied one too many times. That particular fondness warrior mains have for centuries-old methods of distributing wpierdol from a different zip code is obvious and understandable. Guild Wars 2 is one of pretty few examples of MMORPGs where warrior and exact same warrior but with a gun aren't two completely different classes, and it's not just commendable, but a shining example of devs not being a bunch of certified boneheads, which deserves praise. However, due to inglorious rivalry between logic and balancing, we ended up in a situation where not only Rifle is a literal joke weapon in both versus modes, but in PvE as much as getting out of melee with it is a DPS loss. Before we continue, consider checking out Bullshit Brigade's Discord server, and if you like the content, consider supporting me through Patreon. Anyway, you may argue that I'm aiming for low-hanging fruit with this discussion, and that I'm very late to the conversation, but historically speaking, aiming for the low-hanging fruit was at least prominent enough to warrant code pieces being invented, on top of which, whatever bloody angle we approach the situation from, we will have to admit that someone went forward with specifically buffing PvE damage of a weapon to the point where it is still worse than Axis, aka irrelevant in PvE, so I can't really feel bad about myself here. Rifle, as we know, is Berserker exclusive weapon. Not because it cannot be used by other specs, but because core burst is so bloody sluggish, it's not worth using over auto attacks for any other reason than traits that are requiring it. So both core and spellbreaker are locked into DPS loss if they use Rifle, and Blade Swan is only played by people already insane enough to consider playing Guild Wars 2 on a controller. Anyhow, Gunflame saves the weapon from complete irrelevancy, though it can only pull its weight so much, as even for Berserker, simple act of switching to Axis grants immediate noticeable DPS increase of around 15% for what's much more brain-dead rotation. That also makes it easier to upkeep Rage and Quickness. Why the hell would someone use Rifle then? Other than due to autism, of course. Well, as much as I'm engaging into criticism firm enough to land a prison sentence in Britain, I have good things to say alongside the bad ones. Rifle, when used for its intended purpose, has almost a therapeutic flow to its rotation. With full quickness and alacrity, weaving explosive shells, volleys and gunflames together, alongside occasional rifle butt for the ammo reset we crave, is flowing together much more intuitively than carpal tunnel speedrun axes do, or even what Spear or Greatsword have in store. Not to mention, Gunflame's micro daze keeps Relic of Claw permanently active. In fact, it's a rotation flowing so well I'm almost forgetting am a weapon swap away from DPS increase directly proportional to my brain damage. Only wrenches in the goulash here are the adrenaline generation, as Rifle needs both burst mastery and Signet of Rage to burst off cooldown, and the arbitrary requirement for you to be in melee to hit the Rifle 5 of cooldown. Yeah, it's not the end of the world, but if you think about it, current newest raid just came out with a fight which mechanics require a group of players to stay at distance to control where boss fires its lasers. Now imagine one of those DPSs from that ranged group has to run up to the boss, slap it once, and then run back away every 12 or so seconds. It's just asking fate for the mechanic to pop at the moment the guy performs the slapping, target someone unprepared, cause a wipe, and get our rifleman dishonorably discharged from the group and replaced with 7th bloody virtuoso. Sure, Berserker would still be held in close proximity of target by the fact it has to upkeep Rage somehow, and Rage skills aren't usually on par with sniper rifles when it comes to range constraints. Yet still, 600 range we could comfortably sit at by extending Rage with Shattering Blow instead of Outrage is far more comfortable than 130 we're currently stuck to due to Rifle Butt's necessity to hit something to grant its reload. Gunstinger doesn't need to hit shit to restore ammo, and neither does Tactical Reload. Why is this skill still such a travesty with a crankshaft. Staying away would already be a DPS loss due to not hitting the boss with the rifle butt. However, it would at least serve its function ammunition-wise. And in tandem with Spear, Berserker would have then at least a somewhat functional ranged build, unlike it does now. Sure, it wouldn't fix the fact that Core Burst is still impossible to use without enduring mental equivalent of passing a kidney stone, and Brutal Shot would still be a design failure of a great magnitude, but at least a ranged build could be indeed bloody ranged. Therefore, with all those possible points of contention, one question arises. What the fuck actually? With at least 3 skills needing quality of life changes ASAP, why are we buffing the weapon's damage instead of fixing the junk? And the aforementioned damage is buffed so little. All those buffs could be twice that and rifle still wouldn't overtake the axis. If we are buffing its damage, why won't at least make the aforementioned at least bloody relevant numbers-wise? Well, I have 2 theories to why. And they are both a little bit in the tinfoil hat territory, so hold on to your jaws. First theory is that ArenaNet is hiring people based on how ridiculously fucking inept they are, which can be easily debunked by the fact that I'm not working there. Yet. If you couldn't tell, that was indeed a threat. And second theory is that they are cooking something interesting for the January. Yes, it sounds like a fever dream, but consider the following. Every planned patch we got this year was touching up some underutilized, underrepresented option in Warrior's Toolkit. Be it power damage buffs to Sword, Dagger and Mace for Berserker on March 19th, support warrior touch-ups, resistance accesses strength, and whole lot of PvE cooldown buffs we got in June, or Tremor resetting Crushing Blow we just received alongside the comic relief rifle buffs we got this October. Arena is consistently doing small improvements to traits and abilities that don't see much use, and even though with their last 3 patches of small goodies pale in comparison to the travesty with a crankshaft that happened around Spear Spellbreaker, improvements like Restorative Strength, Tremor and Signet of Stamina changes strongly indicate devs have found right tracks. All we need now is to go full steam ahead on the quality of life department and hope for the best. Unfortunately though, my incredible wisdom is as much as mild aftertaste of a wrench in a jar of mineral water, meaning it'll only matter if it gets noticed in the first place and only if whoever's thirsty actually gives a damn about it. So, as usual, I'll keep yapping, nothing grows out of it, and the rest of the game remains at mercy of almighty Balance Man. Let us hope our hope doesn't have to die again, at least. With that said, a special sign of gratitude towards generous Patreon supporters who continuously consider my dubious quality content worth their money. You're all truly welcome. Crabface out.